I was standing in my driveway, coffee in hand, watching my breath turn into white clouds in the freezing air, and staring at an empty space where my snowmobile trailer was supposed to be. That was the moment I realized something was very, very wrong, and that my HOA had finally crossed a line they couldn't uncross. My name is Marcus Fitzgerald. I had been living in the Pine Ridge Estates development for about 8 months, long enough to know the neighborhood, but apparently not long enough to understand how far the HOA was willing to go. Pine Ridge was one of those newer subdivisions built just outside the city. Rows of nearly identical houses, perfect lawns, street names like Whispering Oak Lane and Gentle Meadow Drive, the kind of place designed to look peaceful and controlled. I lived on Winterberry Court. At the time, I thought the name was kind of funny. Later, it felt like a warning. When I bought the house, I was 34 years old and working remotely as a mechanical engineer for a manufacturing company in Minneapolis. The place was perfect for me. 3 bedrooms, a solid garage, and most importantly, a long driveway, long enough to park my truck and trailer without blocking the sidewalk. That driveway was one of the main reasons I bought the house, and that was exactly where my trailer had been parked the night before. That Friday morning, I was supposed to leave early for a snowmobiling trip with my brother Derek. The plan was simple: drive up to Superior National Forest, spend the weekend riding trails, forget about work and stress for a few days. My truck was already packed. 2 Polaris sleds were loaded and secured on the trailer. I had even taken Friday off work just for this trip. Everything was ready, until it wasn't. At 6:30 a.m., I stepped outside for one last check before leaving and found nothing but tire marks and a thin layer of fresh snow. For a full minute, I just stood there, frozen, and not because of the temperature. My brain refused to process what I was seeing. My first thought was theft. Someone had stolen a trailer carrying 2 snowmobiles worth nearly $15,000 combined. My heart started hammering as I pulled out my phone to call the police. Then I saw it, a bright orange sticker stuck to my garage door, flapping slightly in the icy wind. Something in my gut told me this wasn't random. I walked over and ripped it off, my fingers already going numb through my gloves. It was an official notice from the Pine Ridge Estates Homeowners Association, signed by someone named Brenda Mitchell, HOA president. According to the notice, my snowmobile trailer had been labeled a visual nuisance and a violation of community standards, and it had been removed from my property at 7:15 p.m. the night before. Removed like it was trash, like it didn't belong to me. They even included a towing company name, Northland Vehicle Recovery, plus a case number. At the bottom, in bold red letters, it said I was responsible for all towing and storage fees. I read the notice 3 times. Each time, my anger grew stronger. The trailer hadn't been on the street. It hadn't blocked traffic. It hadn't blocked anyone's view. It had been sitting in my driveway, on my property, and they had taken it anyway. That's when I called the towing company. A bored-sounding woman named Sheila answered. After some typing, she confirmed they had my trailer, and my snowmobiles were still inside. Then she dropped the number that made my stomach twist. $425, $375 towing fee, plus 1 day's storage, for something they had taken less than 12 hours ago. I wanted to throw my phone across the yard. Instead, I forced myself to breathe and told her I'd be there at 8 a.m. The second I hung up, I called the HOA number. Voicemail, of course. Office hours, Monday through Friday, 9 to 4. It wasn't even 7 yet. I left a message, probably less professional than it should have been, explaining exactly what I thought about towing someone's property from a private driveway without warning. Then I called my brother Derek and told him the trip was delayed. By 8 a.m., I was standing outside the chain-link fence of Northland Vehicle Recovery, and by 8:30, I was paying hundreds of dollars just to get my own property back. Standing there, hooking my trailer back onto my truck, inspecting fresh damage that hadn't been there before, I made a promise to myself. This wasn't over. Not even close. By the time I pulled back into Pine Ridge Estates with my trailer, the sun had barely risen above the frozen rooftops. But word travels fast in neighborhoods like this. A few curtains moved as I backed into my driveway. Someone across the street pretended to check their mailbox. For the third time, I didn't care. I unhooked the trailer slowly, carefully checking the new scratches along the side rail. Every mark felt personal, like someone had taken a crowbar to something I worked years to afford. Inside my jacket pocket, the HOA notice crinkled every time I moved. Brenda Mitchell, HOA president. I repeated her name in my head like I was memorizing an enemy. I didn't even bother going inside the house. Instead, I got back in my truck and drove straight to the Pine Ridge HOA office, a small brick building near the community entrance with a decorative wooden sign that said, "Preserving Community Standards." The words made my jaw tighten. The parking lot was half covered in packed snow. One car sat near the entrance. I walked up to the glass door and pulled. Locked. Of course it was locked. I checked my phone. 8:57 a.m. 3 more minutes. I stood there in the freezing wind, staring at the hour sign like it had personally offended me. At exactly 9 o'clock, the lock clicked. A woman in her early 50s opened the door halfway and gave me a tight, professional smile. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Brenda Mitchell." Her smile faded slightly. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," I said, holding up the bright orange notice. "But she had my trailer towed from my driveway last night, so I figured this counts as urgent." That was when I saw it, recognition in her eyes. She stepped aside, second door on the left. I walked down a narrow hallway lined with framed photos of neighborhood events, summer barbecues, holiday-like contests, kids' bike parades. Fake smiles, forced community. The second door was open. Inside sat a woman behind a spotless desk, typing on a laptop like she was performing surgery. Short blonde hair, sharp posture, not a single thing out of place. She didn't look up when I knocked on the doorframe. "Yes." "I'm Marcus Fitzgerald, Winterberry Court." Now she looked up, calm, unbothered. "Oh, yes," she said. "The trailer." "Not your trailer, just the trailer." "You had it towed from my driveway," I said. "Yes," she replied simply. It violated community visual standards. I stared at her, waiting for more. Nothing came. There was no warning, I said. No letter, no email, no notice on my door. She folded her hands neatly. "You received notice," she said, "this morning, after you took it." She tilted her head slightly, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. "Mr. Fitzgerald, when you purchased your home, you agreed to HOA bylaws. Section 4.2 clearly states that recreational equipment cannot be stored in visible exterior locations for more than 24 hours. It was there for 14 hours. I snapped, and it was in my driveway, not the street. She didn't react to my tone at all. The rule is about visibility, not location. I actually laughed. "You had 2 sleds and a trailer worth 15 grand dragged off my property without even knocking on my door. It was handled through proper channels," she said. "Proper channels." The words made my hands shake. "Then why?" I said slowly. "Did the towing company tell me you personally authorized it?" That was the first time her expression shifted. Just slightly. But I saw it. "It was within my authority as HOA president," she said. I leaned forward onto her desk. "You cost me $425, and the trailer's damaged. You can submit a claim," she said, already reaching for a printed form, like this was routine, like she'd done this 100 times. That was when I realized something. This wasn't about rules. This was about control. And as I turned to leave, she said something that stopped me cold. "If you continue to store that trailer in view," she said calmly, "we will tow it again, and additional fines may apply." I didn't respond, because in that moment, I knew something she didn't. This wasn't going to end with forms and fines. And if she thought this was just another HOA violation case, she was about to be very, very wrong. The storm hit 3 days later. Weather reports have been warning about it all week. Heavy snow, near zero visibility, ice building on every surface. The kind of storm where even locals stay home. By late afternoon, Pine Ridge Estates looked like a ghost town buried under white. I had moved the trailer into my garage after the confrontation. Not because I agreed with the HOA, but because I needed time to think, time to read every page of the HOA bylaws, time to take photos of my property lines, time to start documenting everything. Because something told me this wasn't over. And I was right. That evening, around 7 p.m., I heard it. A low engine sound, struggling, then tire spinning, then crunch. The sound echoed through my house like a gunshot. My stomach dropped. I grabbed my coat and rushed outside into blinding snow. The wind slapped my face instantly. Snow swirled sideways, erasing everything beyond a few feet. But I could still see it. Headlights pointed directly at my truck, and a dark SUV buried halfway into my front bumper. For a second, my brain refused to process what I was seeing. Then the driver door opened, and out stepped Brenda Mitchell, HOA president. She slipped slightly on the icy driveway, caught herself on her car door, then looked up at me like I had somehow caused this. "Oh, good," she called over the wind. "You're home." I just stared at her. "You hit my truck," I said. "Well," she said, brushing snow off her coat, "you shouldn't be parked like this." I actually thought I misheard her. "This is my driveway," I said slowly. "It's too close to the property line," she said. "Snow makes it hard to see the edges." My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "You drove onto my property," I said, during a snowstorm, and hit a parked vehicle. She crossed her arms like she was cold or defensive. "I was doing a neighborhood inspection," she said. "In a blizzard? We've had multiple violations lately." I took a step toward the vehicles, shining my phone light across the damage. My bumper was cracked. Her SUV had a dented grille and a shattered fog light. Snow kept piling onto both vehicles as we stood there. "Did you call insurance?" I asked. She hesitated. I was hoping we could handle this informally. That told me everything I needed to know. "Yeah," I said. "No, we're not doing that." Her expression hardened instantly. "Well," she said, "if you're going to make this difficult, I should remind you your parking position is still a violation." I laughed. Loud, sharp, completely done. "You just crashed into my truck," I said. "And you're talking about violations?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled out her phone. "I'll be documenting this," she said. "Good," I said. "So will I." I took photos, video, the tire tracks leading straight from the street onto my driveway into my truck. And that was when something shifted. Because for the first time since I moved into Pine Ridge, the power balance flipped. She saw it too. Because suddenly, she wasn't talking about bylaws anymore. She got back in her SUV and left without another word. And standing there in the storm, snow covering the fresh damage, I realized something. This wasn't just about an HOA anymore. This was about someone who thought rules only applied to other people. And I was done being one of them. The next morning, I filed the insurance claim. Not just for the truck damage, but with every photo, every video, every document I had saved since the trailer incident. Timestamps, tow receipts, HOA notice copies, photos of my driveway measurements. And now, photos of Brenda's SUV sitting halfway on my property. Within 48 hours, her insurance company called me. And that was when things started falling apart for her. Because unlike HOA arguments, insurance investigations run on evidence. And evidence doesn't care about titles like HOA president. They ask for security footage. I had it. The previous homeowner had installed 2 cameras covering the driveway and street. I had never needed them before. Until now. The footage showed everything. Her SUV driving slowly down the street, stopping, then turning directly into my driveway. No sliding, no loss of control, just a bad decision. A very expensive bad decision. A week later, I got another call. Her insurance accepted full liability. Truck repairs covered. Rental car covered. Even the cost of repainting scratches caused during the towing incident got pulled into claim after my adjuster